And just to be clear, we're not asking the district to buy the property. That would be what we think an unreasonable request is. There's 54 homes in the district. The Roths would, the asking price for the property is $550,000. That'd be roughly $10,000 a home. That's not what the Roths are looking for. We'd be asking the town specifically to use its ability, whether it be through the use of rec funds or an open space bond or however the method is that's appropriate for financing something like this, to purchase it. And at that point, we could figure out what the best way is to convey the 5.6 to the district, whether it be a lease of the 5.6 or an easement, however it is, where the Roths are no longer in fee title, yet the district has the well field and the town owns the balance. That would be very ideal for the Roths. And what we think is not just ideal for the Roths, but ideal for the members of the community as well. This is a beautiful piece of property. It's got great views at the top. Be a great place to have a picnic pavilion and some picnic tables or some other type of use there. And we think that people would use it. Now, I'd like to raise the discussions that we've had with the town thus far. And we have a copy of the letter that says that there's been an impasse in the negotiations. And I know the Roths were upset about reading that there was an impasse. And quite frankly, we had come to the table twice. We've, through my office, drafted correspondence in October of 2009. And then in August, after a meeting of 2010, to set forth a proposal in lieu of the eminent domain proceeding. And the only rejection that we received, which is what we assumed to be the rejection, was the notice of the public hearing. And it would have been nice to have some notice in advance that the proposals that we raised were either going to be rejected or are rejected. And I asked the board if it's to give merit to the proposal that we made both in October of 2009 and again in August of 2010. And that proposal was for the town to construct the portion of the paper road that is located between Acorn and the Roth property. And that's a very significant thing, and the reason why is that the land drains away from the Roth property. And the stormwater regulations in the state of New York, when you develop property, require you to capture and treat stormwater drainage. From a practical perspective, if the Roths were to construct from their property to Acorn on a downhill, they would have to construct that road up in order to get the drainage to come back to the Roth property. We believe that would significantly impact the owners of the houses to both the left and the right of the paper road. And we think it'd be a tough road to hoe in front of the planning board as well as other agencies. But if the town constructed it, we believe there's some leeway there in the stormwater regulations where the town could construct and connect the drainage, and only the drainage on the paper road, not the drainage from the Roth property. We would have to capture that before it left our property. We would it's a little difficult to see, but this property slopes down. We would have drainage that would come here, it would end here, and be rerouted down to a stormwater detention basin elsewhere on the property. In this case, if the town constructed the paper road, it would only collect the drainage from this area right here to here. Now, we've gotten some estimates on that construction, and when we had our meeting, we left off that the town engineer would identify a value or a construction cost for that. And that was never presented back to the Roths. To this date, we don't know what the potential or what the possible or estimated construction costs were. What number was given to the town for it to make its determination that that wasn't a viable option. And as of a week ago, we have construction costs in the area of roughly $40,000 to do that work. and the offer to the Roths is $84,000, and obviously $40,000 is less than 84. It seems to me that we should really investigate that alternative again and see what that actual cost is. Because if I were a resident in the town of Southeast, I would rather pay, I'd rather take 40 and divide it by 54 homes than 84,000 and divide it by 54 homes, or worse, to continue on in the eminent domain process and have to dispute with counter appraisal or things of that nature, where the cost would just increase tremendously. In addition to the construction of the road, we asked for three things. One was the construction of the road. The second thing was for a reduction in the setback around wells number 3 and 4. Wells number 3 and 4 are the wells that are closest to Foggentown Road. Those wells are located right here. And as Mike Fanning said from Chazen, the town requires a 200-foot buffer. It requires, when you have a community potable water supply system, that's what we have here, which is a water system that supplies the public. You need to own fee title within 100 feet of each well, and then you need to control 200 feet in a diameter around each well. The taking piece, if you look at the aerial that we've presented, I've highlighted it in black. It eliminates this lot right here. It eliminates that lot. We know we have the bog turtle setback over here, but again, we believe we can engineer it in such a way as to not impact that setback and have an additional house location over here. But what I've been able to do in the past, I did this up at the Terrabest International Corporate Park, was to approach the state health department and ask them for a variance of the 200-foot setback. And in this case, if we could have a variance of 50 feet, 50 feet would be enough to develop these two lots, which would, again, reduce the impact of the taking on the Roths. Now, I've spoken to Mike Budzinski at the Putnam County Health Department, and I've spoken to the people in charge at the state health department to see if that's feasible. If it wasn't feasible, we certainly wouldn't have gone forward and proposed it. But what we were able to determine is, because of the topography of the property, it slopes down, and the location of the well field, those houses would not drain to the well field. They would drain down and away from the well field. And there are methods that you can employ to protect the well field, such as, let's say, a 3-foot berm, an earthen berm, around it, so that you wouldn't have stormwater runoff, or the impact that is currently, or the issue that is currently impacting the well field right now is surface water gets to the wells. The well casing, I believe, isn't deep enough, so you have pollutants that are in the surface water. It goes down, goes directly into the well, and those same pollutants, whether it's sediment or something else, is immediately distributed to the houses that are in the district. In this case, with the houses sloped away from that well field, you wouldn't have that circumstance. And we think that if the municipality asked for the variance, and given the nature of the request and the circumstances that it's in connection with the taking, it would certainly offset the value of the taking. And the protective measures to be employed really aren't that costly. We believe the state and the county would look favorably on the variance. The last aspect of our request is to dedicate the parcel under Section 280A of the town law as an open development area. And that's not a costly process. That's the adoption of a resolution by the town board after a seeker resolution is adopted. But what that does is that permits a significant amount of flexibility from a zoning perspective to develop an area as an open development. So you wouldn't have the very strict application of the zoning code for lot width, lot size. You could have access on a common driveway. And that's something I really want to point out here is the construction of the road from Acorn, actually the entirety of the construction of that piece, we would only ask to have it as a common driveway standard. We would not want the size road that is currently there. It's no need to have a road that large to cut between two houses to serve 5 additional houses. You can build to a common driveway standard. It's 14 feet as opposed to 24 feet. And we believe if there needed to be a road there that the residents that are immediately next to it would be benefited by something that was a lot smaller than a 24-foot road. Again, I want to reiterate that we're asking the board to keep the public hearing open. We really would like the town to investigate the purchase of the overall property, and we ask you to consider our comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Just so you know, there is an item on the agenda for later that we're going to ask the Open Space Committee to look at that property and investigate the
Great, thank you.
feasibility of maybe purchasing all of the property as open space.
We saw that, and if I could ask, if I could be so presumptuous, if you guys wouldn't mind moving that up, then the Roths could leave right after we're done.
Right.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks again, Michael. Jim, would you please outline the eminent domain procedure and the calendar, and then reply to any points which may be pertinent, and there may not be, since Michael referenced litigation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm James Randazzo. I'm special counsel to the town in connection with this matter. And as far as outlining what's required next, the board has to determine whether to close the public hearing, and after that there's a up to 90-day period as to when the findings and determinations have to be voted on, resolved, and then published. After that process, we can begin going into court and acquiring the property. The value of the property and how much the town has to pay in connection with that will be litigated in court. As stated by Mr. Liguori, there's already been an offer made of $84,000 for the parcel that we're interested in taking, based on an appraisal that we had done. Certainly, him and his clients have a right to contest that, and ultimately, if it's not resolved amongst the parties, the court will decide what the appropriate amount is.
Very good. Any questions?
Could I just make two, not necessarily what you said, but from the town perspective, there are two very important components. Green space, open land, a nature preserve, and whatever that would not be developed, and Springhouse, which needs clean wells. It's absolutely imperative that that district have clean wells. So that's where we're sitting and looking at this from a perspective of how it's going to benefit the town. So it's so important, I think, that both components can be satisfied. So I hope you look upon this with a very keen eye and make some good decisions.
Thanks, Roger. Any other comment?
Yeah, I think it's important that everyone know that there has been an environmental impact declaration. That's the negative impact. And there has been that SEQA review, the State Environmental Quality Review Act review. And there was a negative declaration issued. And there, to the best of what I have seen and read, is there's no impediment on the lifestyle of neighboring property owners. And that's important to understand. It's important for this board to consider these environmental impacts and in proceeding with this matter in an expeditious way. And I believe that Mr. Bedrosian and Mr. Fanning have explained exactly what we're trying to do here, the public uses, the benefits, and how it will benefit the public, particularly since this Springhouse needs their clean water. It's not only because of any governmental regulations, it's because this is an important part of our town that needs this. And we are trying our best to do the best we can to be the least disruptive and to make certain that we benefit the public by this. So I think that's important, and that's what I wanted to make certain is clear in this public hearing.
And it's important to note for the folks from Springhouse who are with us tonight, the town board has been proceeding and will continue to proceed on a what I call a dual track or parallel tracks. One is with respect to private negotiations, which were outlined in part by Mr. Liguori, and one with respect to the public eminent domain proceeding. We're looking at hard dates later in the year for state